Motion by Jeff, second by Ryan, all in favor. 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hammer. Dr. Dirksen?
All right, thank you, and appreciate the work that you've accomplished so far with this meeting. We've taken some big steps, and very appreciative of that. I just wanted to share an information item, and we'll allow it, and possibly Dr. Springston or any other cabinet member wants to chime in, they can help too. We'll allow it as a time to kind of bring you up to date with a few other things that are going on. I determined that it only needs to be an information item because I don't think I need to ask for action to have employees do what they're contracted to do, and that's to come back to work on July 1. However, I did try to show that we are trying to take some steps to be very conscientious and to be as safe as we possibly can. That being said, I can't sit here and tell you that I don't have a difficult feeling tonight, where 2 weeks ago I had a very positive feeling. The trend has turned, and in the last couple of weeks the cases are going up, and if that continues, then this is exactly what's going to happen during the school year, people. We are going to have to, the big buzzword is pivot, and we'll take it on a case-by-case situation and a day-by-day situation, if you will. However, I do believe that good things will happen if we can all start with the dedication that we're going to come back. This will allow me to send out an email tomorrow and announce to the staff. And this also includes the building staff for secretaries at the different buildings, that sort of thing. Just the normal routine of what we do in the summer, rather than just working from home. And I believe that it's in the best interest of the district to plan on doing that. And if that changes, I'll keep you up to date and make sure that you're aware. I will only respond to information that's given to me from the county health department. Have great communication going with them, and I appreciate the efforts that are being made. You might have read in the Week in Review, but last Tuesday we did hold kind of an impromptu council meeting. We had the directors and all the principals and administrators from the district here. Clayton attended, and I invited Angela Sowers to attend also, and she was unable to make it because she got called out to another situation. However, we were able to talk through the scenarios of what is happening and what could happen. We're anxiously awaiting the document from KSDE to be released. And just to give you that timetable again, July 9th is when the rough draft is to be submitted, and then it goes to the state board for approval or rejection. And then what is planned is, after they clean that up, then on Thursday, July 16th, I believe it is, they'll officially announce the plan. I think deserves some credit. Brad Ralph was here, and you might have seen from the PowerPoint that I sent, his wife is one of the co-chairs of the whole project. So we definitely have some representation from Dodge City, and I have solid faith that we have other employees that are on that committee as well, that large schools are being represented. And I believe it's going to be more a list of suggestions, best practice, better practice, that sort of thing. Because not everything that is on that list are we going to be able to do simply because of the metrics of who we are. Mm-hmm. And today I had a great opportunity. The big three in the Bend were to meet today. The Liberal superintendent was unable to be here, so Garden City and Great Bend were with me today here, and we talked a lot about what we're doing, and we're all in the same boat. We're all wanting to know what everyone's plans are so we can copy those plans, because nobody has an original plan, because we're all taking suggestions from between the CDC and the health departments, and it varies county to county. And Great Bend is up to 54 cases. We all paused a minute and said, that was yesterday. That was just the test yesterday. What do you, no, we made light of that. But anyway, we are going to have to be ready to deal with that. Two more things I want to say. One is Friday we got a good idea of how this is going to work, because we had notification from our bright beginnings of a positive test and great cooperation from the health department. We responded accordingly, and notified all the parents and got things out on social media. That's much what it's going to look like during the year. And as far as I know, we're going to have to be ready to respond in that way on case-by-case situations, because depending on the spread of the infection and the number of positives, it's going to depend on how each case is represented. Meaning, some schools, it might just be the class that is notified that they cannot come back for that quarantine time. In other cases, it may be so widespread it's an entire building. I don't foresee, unless the cases keep trending back upward, that it's going to be an entire district. I think as long as we start school, the plan will be that we'll keep as many buildings as we safely can open throughout that process. However, we know we're going to have to adjust and peel back from time to time. The other thing, and Dr. Springston might help me address this, but on the academic side of it, we are going to have to be ready for multiple platforms, because we might start out with everyone coming face to face, but when we get in these situations and we quarantine those classes, how are we going to provide education for those kids? We're not just going to send them home and give them 10 days off. And we're hearing a lot of information about that. So do you mind talking about some of the methods that we're going to use to address that?
Yeah, like Dr. Dirksen said, last week was a good meeting, and part of it, why I say it was a good meeting is because we could sit down in a room and understand and recognize that we don't have all the answers yet. But what we need to be able to do is to be able to start getting the mental preparation ready to go and put together our response teams. So every single department in this district, including legal and public relations, every single department is going to have to be ready for different impacts that may come to us. What we do know, and this is what Dr. Dirksen and I joke about a lot, we've got a good balance here, because he said, you know, I worry about the academic piece and he's worrying about the overall plant management and the direction of the district, and that's a good thing to have those differing perspectives. Not that he doesn't focus on academics, but I can do that. I can solely put my effort into that. So when I shared with the principals, as we look at this, I think it's important that we look at equity. Equity is something that gets thrown out a lot, particularly in this part of the state. But when we say equity, we need to be careful that when we're providing opportunities, whether it's a blended format, if it's face-to-face, if it's totally online, that what we're doing is we're raising the bar. We need to find ways and partnerships and solutions that if internet connectivity is a problem, it's not if, we know that it is. How do we raise it so that we don't say, well, we're not going to do an online piece because therefore a third of our kids can't get to it. We need to find a way to make sure that we can raise that bar so a third of our students aren't limited, and then it doesn't impact all 100% of our students. So that's something when we talk about equity. It's important that we're raising the bar for everybody. Tiered approach is going to be very important, and that's going to be something as we look at online is how do we present or provide the tier 1, but also the tier 2 and 3 supports. And I know I shared data at the last meeting, kind of where we are as a district with that and why it's important. But last week, there were a handful of us as administrators sat on a Zoom, and there was something there that was kind of a takeaway for me is there's other districts and states that we can learn from. For example, Hurricane Katrina shut down schools for a long time period. Forest fires and brush fires in California shut down schools for a long period. What one of the presenters was saying is some of those places, particularly in Louisiana, focused on just the deficits where students were but did not expose them to tier 1, and they said that was a mistake. So why I'm saying this is we can learn from other places that have gone through similar situations, but we have to stay true to what we put into place. That's the tier 1, 2, and 3 supports, the research behind our instruction, the materials that we're selecting. So that will be true. What we're going to do once we get this packet and we're able to pivot, as Dr. Dirksen says, to different circumstances, is we'll still stay true to that framework. And then we'll look at what that delivery format and the support of teachers and parents and kids will look like. So I have informed coaches, obviously this is voluntary, but I'm encouraging all of them. I set up a day here in this room on February 13th. We'll have the report from more than likely approved by the State Board of Education, and that will be our framework by which we'll go and start putting options and scenarios and timelines. So this will, July, what did I say?
I was like, wow.
February.
I was waiting.
You
Did
are
I
a
say
planner,
January?
dude.
I prefer January, but I don't know if I can have that power, but July. January's better though, July. So this will be also collaborative. So just because the coaches are coming together, that's just the think tank to put together the X's and O's. We will obviously involve anybody and everybody we need to.
And last thing, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little about the competency-based programs that we're hearing a little about and a short note of what that might be.
Yeah, the competency-based or outcome-based education is going to be looking at, in a nutshell, it's saying that students should be able to perform certain standards in either grade level or grade spans. So by the end of third grade, a student should be able to say, demonstrate these skills in English language arts or math or science or social studies. It's also much different in theory. There can be different variations that it is not seat-based time. It's based on showing proficiency of those standards so kids can move in between those spans at their rate. It's also quite a bit more focused on individualization, which is what we're doing as well in the more traditional model. So the outcome-based component at the elementary, you've heard some things like standards-based report cards. That's, in some cases, depending on how it's deployed, can be similar. That's saying these are the state standards by grade level, by subject, they need to show proficiency. A lot of this also is going to definitely impact, and what I didn't say as far as just the COVID response is, how do we grade? And when I mean grade, meaning not just the mark, but how do we, if kids are in different settings, how do we evaluate their work to determine where they are in where they should be based on that standard and that grade level and that subject. So the outcome-based education model is something that, yes, we have been hearing that. It's right now has not been substantiated, and we'll know when the report comes out. So that will require quite a bit of thought process, planning, and probably appropriate levels of time to move towards. I would imagine if that is part of the recommendation, it would be probably an ongoing, my assumption, and this is just my assumption, would be part of the accreditation cycle as districts move towards that and school redesign. But again, I don't know if that's what's coming out. We just heard enough, and I want to be careful and put a caveat that's just rumor at this point.
How in the world do you create an outcome-based curriculum and hit your outcomes with such a fluid, moving target as we're talking about?
Well,
I mean, that's...
That in itself is the whole mystery to what is about to happen.
I know,
because
it's nuts.
this could be on the verge of some big changes in a lot of ways. Because if this does happen, and that was one thing I wanted to end on, you have to realize when you go to that competency-based, once students accomplish that, then they move on. And once they move on, then they're moving on. And the bottom line is, no longer, because of the seat time not being the issue, the competencies are the issues, then it becomes a matter of how long will they be here, and that could change school funding, that could change school finance, that could change a lot of things. But it comes down to what might be the best interest of the student. What I don't want it to become is test on those competencies that we've seen in the past as well. So, I mean, it brings up a new dilemma, but as we look at all the schools that are going to redesign and all of that, this definitely fits in that whole caveat. So, and like Dr. Springston pointed out, we need to wait until the report is actually out so we know exactly what we're talking about. However, we've got to be thinking about how we can provide for students when we do have a change, and there is going to be many cases of change this year, which leads me to an item, I'll mention it now. Dr. Springston and Mr. Whiff have been working on a computer purchase order for new laptops for our students, and that's probably more important this year than it has been in many years. And they're going to look at the timetable. I'm not a big fan of special meetings unless it's absolutely necessary, but Scott emailed me today that he's very worried if we wait until the July 13th meeting, is that the date? He's worried that may be too late for the start of school to provide the training, et cetera, for the new laptop. So I may be asking about trying together, and it may just be a morning meeting that we'll do with proper announcements and all that, to get the board together to approve a large purchase. I mean, we're talking a significant purchase. And is it 6 through 12? I'm trying to remember what that order was for whatever we decide.
Something based on what Hammer has built into the budget. And I know that there's been.
Speak into the mic, because that might go to the eventually.
Yeah,
Everything runs through Hammer.
we're going to talk about this tomorrow at Cabinet, but what we'll present will also align with timeline of the age of the material, of the devices. In other words, what needs to go in first, kind of the rollout of the ELA and I guess what I'm saying, there's a lot of variations that will go into it, but also one is big important piece is the budget. So we're looking at probably a capital outlay purchase, could be either over 2 years or 3 years for devices and then support equipment that would go with those devices. The existing iPads, those that are not past their shelf life and are not working, we'll need to kind of determine what that will look like, what we do with them. And so there's still a lot of variables that are out there. But as far as timeline, what Dr. Dirksen is saying, to be able to get materials, most districts are placing orders right now. So to be able to get the materials in, make sure that we're able to configure them, do our inventory, get them out in the buildings, collect the old ones. We kind of got to look at an abbreviated time schedule.
What about internet access? I mean, we can give them all the computers they want, but if they don't have internet at home.
Yeah.
They make them with that now.
Can we,
Yeah, so Pearson, the product that you guys approved for ELA, they have a version on there. Obviously, there's an online login for students and staff, but also there's an ability within their platform to download what I call a static file, so that if we're able to get it on a device on the desktop or create a folder, kids can pull those things off, whether it's videos or materials. There's still going to have to be some discussion then how do we get things turned in. So ideally, I mean, we'll find ways to make sure that we can mitigate some of those, like I talked to you about before, is the equity issue. As far as the ongoing, like internet connectivity for all kids, I know that Ray and at the Cabinet, there's been some discussion about, and we've had temporary stopgap support from United Wireless and other places, but long-term, it's a pretty costly endeavor. And it's probably one that I would just tell you is going to probably require multiple partners, whether that be from the state level, local businesses, so in a public-private partnership. Those are all things that are going to take some time and starting conversations and building the need and building the awareness and building the partnership. So that's something that's not just Dodge City, that's everywhere.
that's gotta happen as soon as they get the computer, they're gonna have to have it.
Correct.
So this would be